The Build Show is on the road today. I'm coming to you from Rhode Island. We're here for the JLC Live conference. And while I'm here, I wanted to visit one of my builder friends' job sites. We're actually visiting today with Wade Paquin of WKP Construction.
Good to see you, Matt.
Wade, this is a beautiful house. I can't wait to tour this one with you. So Wade, before we get into the house though, give us a quick background on you as a builder. How many years you been building now?
Sure. So this June will actually be 18 years in business, which is crazy to think about. It's been a wild ride. But I grew up in the industry. My dad was a builder, did a lot of design build work up outside of Boston. And I went to school for architecture and construction management. And
how'd you get your start in residential then? Walk me through what happened when you graduated.
Yeah, so I grew up when I was younger and through high school working just about every trade on my dad's sites, learning a little bit of everything.
That's awesome.
And after college, I went and got the job, and I was a PM for a site work company, and I just didn't find that was something that I was passionate about. So I quit cold turkey and put the tool belt back on, found a really cool job building a post and beam house, a custom home out of, it came from a barn in Indiana.
Wow.
So we shipped this thing back on 4 flatbed trailer trucks.
Oh, cool.
And assembled this incredible house. And I was jazzed up about it, and a gentleman came by the site one day and asked who the builder was, and since we didn't really have one, I told him I was the foreman, and he had a project. I looked at it, we worked it out, I got my license, and here we are.
That's so cool, Wade. 20 years later, now you're in your mid-40s, and you're doing trophy projects like this, man. Tell me about this house behind me, Wade.
So this house was built originally in the 1890s. It's pretty cool. There's some historical photos here of the old house with like horse and buggies out front.
Wow.
And people in cowboy hats and the whole getup.
My fellow Texans came.
Yeah,
to visit
basically,
you up here.
Exactly. So it's been, it's a big house. It's about 8,500 square feet, just shy of that, and it's built off of this whole area here is notorious for ledge. I mean, you're right along the ocean on the shore.
Okay.
And about half of the house has a stone foundation that's built directly off the ledge.
Wow.
And we believe that stone has come from the actual site.
Okay, so the builder basically scraped the topsoil, found the bedrock in the 1890s, and then started building the foundation with the rubble, probably from the site. Is that right?
That's what we think. Yep.
That's
and
amazing.
then other areas where the walkout is here, where there is no foundation. There are some 16 by 16 old timbers. We believe cypress, because that's the species we found elsewhere in the house so far, sitting right on ledge and dirt, and
no
in
rot,
mint condition, no rot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about the mortar joints on that stone foundation that's 130 years old?
Yeah, so those are impressive to me, because when we've done a lot of renovation work in this area or across the bay on the other island in Newport, a lot of masons back in the day would take the sand from the beach, from the shores of the beach, and use that with the salt water, and it just doesn't last. It crumbles.
Yeah.
This mortar here actually looks like they use fresh water, and it's held up very well.
So probably fresh water and sand from inland, not from beach sand.
More than likely.
That's amazing. Now, talk me through what you did in the exterior, because what we're seeing here is a slightly modernized version of the house, but walk me through stripping the house down and what you found and what you did to it.
How much time you got?
We have plenty of time.
So, the house was basically a full gut, outside, inside. The outside actually on 2 sides of the house had 2 layers of shingles on it.
Oh, wow.
The first layer was nailed, the second layer was stapled. So you can imagine how time consuming that was to strip just the shingles. And then for the most part, the exterior sheathing was in pretty good shape. It's a lot of 1x8, horizontal boards. So there was a lot of gaps, as much as like an inch between boards.
And that was not shiplap sheathing, that was just 1x8s nailed on as shear value, right?
Exactly.
Because you get a ton of wind load, so the house needs that shear value.
A lot of wind load from the north and the south, north in the winter, south in the summer.
And so did you leave that as the sheathing on the house, or what'd you do?
No, so that wasn't something that was anticipated. Obviously, we had to do something about it, and what we decided to do was, of course, use the best product out there for sheathing, and that's the zip system.
Yeah.
So while we were under construction trying to protect the bones of the house, we ended up wrapping the entire house in Typar just to keep weather out.
Yep.
And then we would work one side at a time, removing the Typar and adding the zip system, and then we'd work our way around the house until we had a tight envelope.
That's great. Now, let's switch gears a little bit from the outside because we're going to go look in a minute at a couple of the details on your shingles. Walk me through the mechanicals on this house. We took a tour of the basement a little bit ago, and you've got a 2-tank oil system that's feeding a boiler, right? How big is that boiler in the basement?
That boiler is a 300,000 BTU boiler that holds, I believe, we think from the plumber, about 25 gallons of water in the boiler.
Okay, so that big old engine down there, that V8, which is funny, that's actually what they
V8
call
series,
it,
yeah.
is firing up the water for both the heating on the house and the domestic hot water, meaning the faucets on the house. And then the heating and cooling system here is one I've never seen before. What did you decide to use in this house?
So we use the Unico system here, and the reason for that was just because of the complexity of the house. It's so big, it's so chopped up. There wasn't one central area to put a mechanical room and have a chaseway that could go up and supply the entire house.
Yeah.
So we've got 7 zones here, 4 in the basement and 3 up in the attic. So we're floor feeding and ceiling feeding.
That's really cool. And actually, you had a famous guy come help you with that, didn't you?
Yeah, Richard, the plumber from this old house, was here to give us some basically consult on the best way to use the Unico system here, which blew my mind. I was telling you earlier, he had never stepped foot on the job or the property. We had some small talk. I said, "Where do you want to start?" He said, "Take me to the top floor," and he just started. Let's do this here. We're going to run a supply here. We're going to do a return here.
Wow.
And just had this thing dialed in like less than an hour. It was incredibly impressive.
Now, I'd never seen a Unico before, and this system was really impressive. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically a higher velocity system that uses smaller ductwork. So throughout the house, as Wade and I are walking, you're going to see these kind of 2-inch vents in various places, from ceilings to underneath cabinets. You can put them in all kinds of places because you can snake that really small flex in all kinds of spots when you've got a 2-inch outlet. But it's moving air at a higher velocity. And one of the things I always heard, from a general standpoint was, gosh, you're going to rattle the drapes or you're going to hear that wind noise. But he's got a couple of units fired up over there, and Wade, I got to tell you, it was much, much quieter than I expected. I didn't hear that air movement like I thought I might.
Yeah, and I share those same concerns because, it's been about 10 years since we used our last Unico system. We've been using them a little more recently, but those were the same kind of complaints that we would have back then, noisy, and you'd feel the drafts and those sort of things. That it's just a much different system now, and Richard could speak to the specifics on that. But
yeah, they must have tweaked it. But let's walk through how it works. So in the basement, you've got that huge boiler, 300K input. It's heating water to just below boiling, 200 degrees, let's say. And then it's got a big fat copper pipe coming out of there with water that's nearly, 200 degrees, let's say. And then from there, there's a bunch of taco pumps that are each feeding your Unico system. So each Unico system is calling for more heat. The taco pump turns on, it sends 200-degree water there. That water comes into one of those low, little tiny looking units. It sends it through the boiler where the air is rushing through. It's heating that air and then sending it through a trunk line that to me looked like maybe an 8-inch trunk line. And then from there, it looks like the HVAC guy maybe just cuts out on that metal trunk some 2-inch holes. Those go to each one of the outlet locations. And then the return is quite a bit bigger. It looks like maybe a 16-inch return, so twice the size. So all the heating is hydronic from that boiler. And then that boiler's also got a loop over to the domestic hot water tank, maybe an 80-gallon storage tank or so down there. Heats that up, and that's going to send it out through the whole rest of the house. And then the hydronic system, which feeds Unico, those Unicos have a separate line for Freon for cooling. So they're doing both heating and cooling. But pretty neat that you've only got one boiler in the whole house, one thing that's heating hot. It's down in the basement. It's in a central location, fed from those 2 big gas tanks. Wade, cool project, man. Let's go look at a couple of your shingle details because I think people are really going to like to see that. Wade, this house, man, it is a stunner. I absolutely love the shingle style house, Wade. Walk me through the palette of materials on the outside. What are we looking at here?
Sure. Let's start at the top. The roof is an Alaskan yellow cedar. A lot of times we'll use a taper sawn. The difference with the taper sawn is it can weather a little darker, where the Alaskan yellow gets more of a silver look to it. So architect preference, you know, typically, but I do prefer the Alaskan yellow. Sidewalls,
The wall shingles are different though, right?
they are. That's a eastern white cedar on the
Okay.
sidewall. So that's going to also weather and darken. Areas where it gets a lot of sun and weather and rain is going to darken faster than areas that don't see as much sun or some shade.
Gotcha. And there's no sealer, there's no paint, there's no primer, nothing on those, right? That's
Natural.
just bare natural cedar.
Correct.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Tell me about how you get that flare at those, for instance, the transition over here to that little, from the sidewall to that little roof over that kitchen bump out. So pretty.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of bands of that going around the house, and that was put on after the zip sheathing went up.
Okay.
We basically framed that out to accommodate the flare that we needed for projection, curvature, and the height. And then that got sheathed and then ice and watered right up over the flare and up the sidewall.
Gotcha.
And then you can you know, start your shingle courses up at the edge of the flare and run them up the sidewall from there.
And then all the corners are woven, right? There's no corner boards in the house.
No corner boards, yep, all woven. And if you go around and look closely, you'll see on each course on the corner, we use a small stainless steel nail just to hold that corner. These eastern white cedar shingles tend to move around a little bit more than say a red cedar shingle.
Gotcha.
So you know, they have a tendency to cup, and we like to pin that corner just to keep the weave tight.
And with the stainless, you won't see nail bleed, right? On
Nope,
those shingles?
no bleeding of the nails.
Oh my gosh. And now what's all the white trim we're seeing? Like for instance, these windows on the second floor, you've got it looks like some kind of a sill trim, a 1x apron, and then a 1x4 wrap around those in a picture frame. What is that material?
Yep, so basically almost everything you see on the house is AZEK.
Okay.
Except for the decorative rafter tails and some of the decorative blocks that you'll see.
Got it. So painted AZEK on the outside.
It's not painted, it's going to be left natural.
Oh, that's raw. So that's a raw PVC trim that you don't need to paint. And will it fade over time, or what will that look like?
It won't fade. It'll hold up very well, especially in this environment. A lot of our clients prefer, you know, low maintenance products.
Yeah.
This is certainly a product that will provide that.
Now, I noticed you didn't say a no maintenance product. Tell me about
That's
that.
right. That's a big difference, and we always make that clear to the client because they do use that term.
No
that
maintenance.
We want a no maintenance product, and I
Right.
say there's no such thing. There's low maintenance product,
Yep.
and that's what you get with the AZEK.
Okay, so you're probably going to clean that on an annual basis, maybe some soap and water. Certainly not a power washer because that's going to mess with your shingles and that beautiful gray aging you're getting, but really cleaning's all that's necessary, no repaint. Now, how about your rafter tails that are up there? What are those rafter tails?
So the rafter tails are cedar, red cedar,
Okay.
that we milled here on site, and those are sistered up to the existing rafters. So that part's painted, and all the blocks that you see, all the decorative blocks, are also made out of cedar as well.
Got it. And as I look up, I'm seeing a bead board. Is that your structural decking on the roof?
Nope, that's applied to the bottom side of the sheathing, so that was packed down, and then the AZEK applied to it.
Got it. So you have a typical sheathing, like a zip roof, let's say sheathing, 5/8 brown zip roof, and then underneath that, you're cutting in between each one of those rafters with that
Exactly.
AZEK bead board, which again, no paint on those. The only thing that's really painted on your outside is just your rafter tails. That's really cool.
Correct.
Now tell me about the pretty head flashing I'm seeing over that. Is that a galvanized metal? What's that head flashing I'm seeing in various places?
Yeah, so over the bands, over all the window and door caps, as well as all the perimeter around all the roof eaves and rakes, is all a lead-coated copper.
Lead-coated copper.
And we use that a lot
Ooh.
around here.
So why not standard copper or standard lead? Lead-coated copper, what's the difference?
So the lead-coated copper is going to remain as you see it. It's not going to weather, it's not going to bleed, it's not going to change colors.
Got it.
Whereas you know, red copper
Yep.
is going to patina and
Yep.
eventually turn green.
That greenish color.
And that, we do use it from time to time on some projects, but you'll see that more often with the red cedar than
Got
you
it.
do with the eastern white and yellows.
And standard lead would be too soft to hold up and get those crisp profiles you got there, right?
Correct, and standard lead bleeds too. So sometimes you'll see a lot of guys use rolls of lead as a flashing transition between a roof and a sidewall, and that lead will bleed out on the shingles below it. So
Man.
that's why we use the lead-coated copper in that application.
Wade, this exterior shows off your craftsmanship. I mean, you have some great carpenters, some great details. I know you're like me where you've got a critical eye And I'll tell you, walking your job site, man, it is crisp. It is really, really pretty.
I really
on the
appreciate
outside.
that. Thank you, Matt.
Gorgeous house. All right, now let's go into the kitchen from here, Wade, and let's get a little bit of a tour of the house. We've talked a long time about the outside and the basement and mechanicals. Let's go show these guys what the inside looks like.
Let's check it out.
Wade, the inside of this house, so iconic, so white and beautiful, really timeless. Walk me through how you guys do it with cabinetry here in this part of the world. Is this site built? Is this off-site? Did you ship this in from a national manufacturer? What do you got going on here?
So we work with a local cabinet guy here in Rhode Island, up in the northern part of the state. And we've had a relationship with them for, geez, probably 6-7 years now. So they do all of our cabinetry, kitchens, bath vanities, millwork, built-ins, you name it, they can do it.
Beautiful.
Smaller details like that round mirror I showed you, and all sorts of fun stuff. They have a full paint shop, so they have the capability of providing a shop, finished product.
Okay, so these are actually finished off-site on the painted areas. How about on this beautiful white oak? That looks like some riffs on white oak we're looking at.
Yeah, so this kitchen here was finished in their shop, in their paint shop. So
Gorgeous.
cabinets, perimeter cabinets painted, and just a clear finish here on this oak island.
That's amazing.
Everything else here on this particular project was just shop primed.
Got it.
So we'll finish on site.
And this is kind of random, but I was shocked to find out that this is not a natural stone. That's actually a quartz countertop here, isn't it?
Yes, and I haven't been a big fan of quartz over the years, and the client chose this quartz.
I mean, you can't tell that's not a natural stone.
No, you can't. Yeah, I was impressed with it. Yeah.
A lot of movement, not that kind of uniform white that you think of for quartz.
Exactly.
Impressive. All right, now question for you. In this beadboard ceiling, I'm not seeing a lot of lights or electrical yet. I see one cut out over here. What are you doing for lighting in this ceiling?
So when we do wood ceilings in here in this 1x6 V-groove, we will put the wires in the general location of where the recessed fixture or pendant's going.
Okay.
And then we will run the boards and then drill them out so the hole is dead center on the board, and then pull the wire down as you see here.
Oh, that makes sense, because if you put that box in early, it'd be a bear to try and figure out how to center that box.
Almost impossible.
Almost impossible. That's really smart.
So those little details.
And
go
your
a long way.
ceiling is probably strapped with one by, like I'm seeing all over this New England area. So you've got a little bit of room to put a hole saw in there and not hit something too. Structural.
Yeah. This particular ceiling actually is a double ceiling. There's actually a sheetrock ceiling above this.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
But this kitchen ceiling was out almost 3 inches in each direction. So we had to shim this whole thing down and make it flat.
Yeah, if you're 130 years old, you're going to have some
gonna
sag
happen.
as well. Speaking of that, tell me what's going on with your floors. I'm seeing this looks like a brand new floor here. I'm not sure what species this is. And then you've got some old, stained floors, but I'm seeing that patchwork. What are you doing with flooring here?
Yeah, so the clients wanted to maintain as much as of the original house as possible. And honestly, that was basically in flooring. So much of the house has been gutted and renovated.
Got it.
So we tried to keep as much floor as we could. The original floor is fir. Old growth, tight grains, and now we married that up with new fir, a little bit wider grain on it, but once it's sanded and finished, it'll look good. You will see the difference, but that's a characteristic that they were looking for.
Yeah, so this new floor is that vertical grain, Doug fir, not nearly as tight as the old fir. I wonder if that was Doug fir or what species of fir. Interesting, but once you sand it, that's not going to be apparent necessarily. And if this is a 130-year-old house, my guess is there are some places that have been sanded multiple times. You may be
have
getting
that
close.
right down there in the family room.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's been sanded down quite a bit.
So you're down to the tongue maybe on those last couple
We
sands.
are on the tongue.
Now, Wade, you guys have several carpenters that work direct for WKP, right? Tell me about how many carpenters you have, and then this interesting kind of porch job site storage area that I see over here. I don't have to do that in my mild Texas climate. My guess is you have some cold winters here and a lot of wind. So what are you doing with that on the porch?
Yeah, so we have a fairly large wraparound porch here, covered wraparound porch, and with the hectic schedule to get to the deadline here, and carpenters and everybody working around and over each other. Really.
And through the winter too.
And through the winter, Fred, the project manager here on this project, we call him Freddie MacGyver because he's always got a solution for something, and he came up with that great idea of basically building an enclosure just to get some of the tools and any carpentry dust can be outside instead of inside, so the painters can, you know, be efficient with their work.
That's really smart. So you got a finished porch out there. What did you do to protect those finishes on the floors and the walls?
Yeah, so we just threw some 1/4-inch Luan down, and then just used some Ramboard seam tape.
Okay.
To
Taped it all and
taped it all,
protected
so
those
nothing
boards.
got in and underneath, and then was, you know, acting as an abrasive on the Ipe decking that's finished. And then we just stood up some vertical sheets of plywood.
Super smart.
And voila.
And then you got great storage and protection from the elements there. Very cool. Man, let's take a tour of the rest of the house, and I really want to show these guys your beautiful sun porch family room. Not sure what that room's called, but let's meet over there.
All right, let's check it out.
Wade, this family room, I love it. This looks like the tribute to trim room, as I like to say. Give me the basics on this room, Wade.
Yeah, so this is the family room, and this basically has evolved through the project. The fireplace was an add-on. There's actually a brick chimney behind this wall over here that had a wood stove that they were going to try and reuse and do a surround there. It didn't work out. So.
And we saw that chimney exposed on the attic when we toured that too, right?
It's a different chimney. There's 2 chimneys here.
It is, okay.
Yeah, this
Gotcha.
is a bit sort of a smaller one. So this evolved into a propane fireplace over here with the surround and the bench seats by the windows. And then the coffered ceilings also evolved too, to hide the steel beams that are cantilevered out for that balcony deck in the master suite above.
Got it.
So we carried those lines straight through and decided to just coffer the ceiling.
That's beautiful, man. This had to have taken a couple weeks for your finish carpenters in here, right?
Dave, our lead carpenter, is the man, and Dave did everything in here by himself.
Is that right?
In less than a week. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Super fast. Now, all poplar I'm seeing in this room because this hasn't been primed yet.
Correct, and that is mostly what we use is poplar for all
Okay.
of our interior trim packages. Just as you guys probably know, it's a great product to work with.
Takes paint well,
takes
and
paint
mills
well,
It's real
smooth,
crisp and
exactly,
sharp.
Exactly.
That's interesting. Now, when I think of New England, I honestly think that most of the painting in New England is a brush-on finish, but I'm not seeing that in your house. Tell me, walk me through a little bit of how you guys are doing that.
It depends on the job, to be honest with you. Some clients and architects and designers like a sprayed finish. Others like a brush finish. Sometimes it's a spray finish on all the running millwork, and then a brush finish on cabinetry, let's say.
Gotcha.
So it's more of a preference. This particular job is all spray finish.
It's really crisp, man.
Thank
Great job over here. Wade, one of my favorite compliments that I've gotten over the years on my house is that the house looks really crisp. And I would give you that same compliment, man. I mean, this is just beautiful work. We don't do anything like this in Texas. The style, the shingles on the outside, the craftsmanship, just a top-notch renovation, man. 130-year-old house, and she's looking absolutely amazing. The other thing I really like about this house, Wade, is that as old as this house is, when you're all done with these old floors and keeping the style of the house the same, it feels like an old house. It has character, it has soul. That's, I think, missing on a lot of new construction houses. And people will walk in here and go, man, this old house looks amazing. Mm-hmm. You've done a tribute to that original builder that was here on this site over 100 years ago.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Great work. Guys, if you want to follow Wade on Instagram, he's putting some beautiful pictures up. He does these really, what I would consider New England style houses. He's also doing some gorgeous modern stuff. We're going to go check that out on some other job sites later. But great builder. Follow him on Instagram, and I'll put a link to his website below if you're in the local area and are interested in hiring Wade or his company. Guys, if you're not already a subscriber on The Build Show, new content every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.